Well, we're getting down to it. Tomorrow is election day, although a lot of people, I think in probably most states, people are already voting. And in many states, people have largely already voted, like the vote by mail states, or many people have voted. There's a lot of stuff on the ballots, but I think the most interesting thing that is happening in this election is that this is the first time that the billionaires and the big corporations have really figured out how to use Citizens United. And you have to ask yourself the question, and this is something you will not see on any national television network other than Free Speech TV. You will not see this. There may or may not be a discussion about it on PBS. There certainly was not on NPR this morning on Morning Edition. It was the third day in a row that they've promoted Cory Gardner over Mark Udall in Colorado. It was just mind-boggling. Last Thursday, Mara Liasson was talking about Cory Gardner's not really that right-wing crank you think he is. Well, actually he is. It's a lie, what Mara Liasson was saying. And then on Friday, which was the last day to mail in a ballot in Colorado, if my recollection is correct, Morning Edition, NPR's morning show, said, well, let's go talk to a Republican. And they talked to a nice Republican who talked about how wonderful Cory Gardner was and how they had just voted for him. And then this morning, again, they said, well, today was supposed to be the day they talked to a Democrat, right? Well, they just talked to some guy or a couple of people. Well, what do you think about Mark Udall? I mean, literally, the person didn't say anything. They changed the subject. What do you think about Cory Gardner? Oh, he's a farmer, and our food comes from the ground, and we all need to be voting. No, Cory Gardner's a right-wing crank. He's about it. He was swept in. He was part of the Republican Tea Party 2010 sweep into the House of Representatives. He voted to shut down the government. He has sponsored a fetal personhood bill, which would cause women, if they have miscarriages, to have to report to the police department. That's who Cory Gardner is. But NPR is not going to tell you that. But anyhow, the big question in my mind, and I think this is the biggest question of the election cycle, is how much money is being put into these races? Where's it coming from? Where is it going? And why? Washington, D.C. has become the best investment in the country. And state houses and now judicial races, a close second. If you're worth billions and you want to be worth more billions, invest in politicians. If you're a big corporation, I mean, in California, you've got literally the oil industry trying to buy a community, basically, buying the political infrastructure of a community. There's this, but the really big story, I think, is this mind-boggling flood of money that is coming in at the last minute. And I started this whole thing out by saying this is really the first election where they've figured out how to use McCutcheon and Citizens United. They did it, fairly aggressively in 2012 and got a number of Republicans elected. But this time it looks like, American democracy is just plain old flat out for sale. Thanks to our Supreme Court. And what's astonishing is that there are still candidates who are saying, I'm not for sale, and there are still people who will vote for them. What's astonishing is that the Koch brothers can spend several $100 million, and their buddies probably $1 billion, $1,000 million in this election cycle. And yet they may not win everything, but they're going to win a lot, and they're going to win enough for them to make sure that their taxes aren't raised, to make sure that there's no tax on carbon, to make sure that the fossil fuel industry preserves the fact that you send $523 a year to Washington, D.C. to redistribute to the coal, gas, and oil companies. whereas you only send $7 a year to redistribute to solar and wind and development of other alternatives? That, in my mind, is the really, really, really big issue. And nobody's talking about it.